Hello guys, hope you're doing good. So in today's video, we're going to look at the camp axe from Esker. So recently the company called Esker contacted me asking me if I want to review one of their axes. So it's a Canadian company. They're known mostly for making winter camping tents. They make some pretty awesome tents. But recently they started making some axes. And I was pretty impressed with their axes, so I agreed to review one of them. So let's go over the characteristics of this axe. So overall the handle is 24 inches. It's made out of hickory, so that's nice. The head of the axe is pretty beefy, pretty heavy, weighs at 3.6 pounds. It's made of carbon steel with a HRC at the bit of roughly 53 to 54. So the head of the axe is hand forged in Austria. So the axe has a Hudson Bay pattern, as you can see here, that flares down. So that's a nice pattern of axe. If we look at the geometry of the bit here, it's pretty thick up to the tip. So definitely it's going to be a great axe for splitting and for chopping. Maybe it's going to be more difficult with the smaller tasks. I guess we'll see. So the axe has this very nice wood wedge, and the fit up is excellent. There's absolutely no gap anywhere. So very nice fit up of the handle to the head of the axe. So it does come with this beautiful leather mask. As you can see, it's pretty thick leather, full grain leather. It's welted, so that's an important feature. Double stitched and has some rivets on top. And the snap is very good quality as well. So excellent axe mask for sure. So the great orientation on the handle is excellent. There's really no grain runoff anywhere. So it's very linear, should be very robust. So if you look at the alignment of the head of the axe with the handle, it's excellent. It's really straight in the middle. So it's a good sign of excellent craftsmanship. So this handle feels very good in the hand. You can choke up here, but it's not too thick down there. So that's going to be great for prolonged work. It does come with this chamfered lanyard hole, which is a nice thing to have as well if you want to hang up your axe in the barn or whatever. Or you could just put a piece of orange paracord to avoid losing it in the forest. All right, so let's go test it out. All right, we can do a few smaller tasks. Let's see how good it is at cutting this cord here. Surprisingly pretty good. All right, so let's see how good it is at making feather sticks. Obviously it's a big axe, so that's not its main function, but maybe you need it for that. It's not ideal. So let's see how good it is at camp tasks. So let's say I need to make a tent peg here. So even though the head is heavy, it's still doable. So obviously with its 3.6 pound head, it's not going to be a light axe. Initially, I was a bit concerned of having such a heavy head on a 24-inch handle. But the more I used it, the more I enjoyed this axe. One of the benefits of this handle to head ratio is that it's quite packable, but it does pack a huge punch when you really need it. So I've used this axe a lot to do some splitting, and this is definitely one area in which it shines. Obviously it's not as efficient as a dedicated splitting axe, but it's very close. And for most pieces of wood you're going to find in the outdoors, maybe 5 to 6 inch across. This is an exceptional axe. If I compare the splitting power of this axe to other bushcraft axe like the Scandinavian forest axe, there's no question that this Esker axe is much more powerful for splitting. I mean, it's much more efficient that way because of the thicker geometry of the bit compared to the very thin geometry of the Scandinavian forest axe. A feature I really like with this axe is that it really acts as a pickaroon. It's quite easy to pick up your pieces of wood. It bites deep And with the 24-inch handle, they're quite easy to maneuver as well. So when it comes to removing branches from fallen trees, it's a great axe. I mean, some axes are not too good for limbing, but this one works very well. It's a combination of the geometry and the weight of the head. So I've used this axe a lot to chop fallen trees, sometimes to remove them from trails, sometimes to chop them into firewood. And I can honestly say this is a great chopping axe or bucking axe. It really works well. Again, the combination of the head of the weight, but also the shorter handle makes it pretty easy to maneuver in the woods. I really like that. So for many years, these 24-inch handle axes have been my go-to for winter camping, for work in the forest, to clear trails. Obviously, I also use them to split wood. So one of the issues I found with the Gransfir Brooks, the Scandinavian forest axe, or even the Husqvarna 24-inch axe, is that their geometry is quite thin. So sometimes the axe will actually bind in the wood, and the head of the axe isn't as heavy as this 3.6 pound axe. So it doesn't have as much power during chopping, and so they're definitely less efficient choppers that way. So obviously there's no single handle length to axe head weight that's ideal for every situation and every person. And as I say, initially I was a bit dubious about having a 3.6 pound head on a 24-inch handle axe, but after prolonged use, chopping down many trees, I have to say that this is a pretty interesting combination. But because it's a bit heavier, I would recommend this axe for winter camping when you have a sled, maybe to carry on your ATV or your Jeep, or just to bring camping if you're car camping, etc. So one thing to note is that there's no varnish on the axe handle, so it's really essential that you finish it properly. So I gave it a few passes with some sandpaper, and then added many coats of boiled linseed oil. So that's essential for the durability of your handle, to make it more water resistant and to avoid drying and cracking over time. So overall, I'm super happy with this camp axe from Esker. Has a pretty heavy duty head, so that definitely helps for bigger tasks. You can still do some lighter tasks, but it's not going to be ideal for that. So definitely it's a great camp axe if you need to split wood, to do some chopping. This is definitely going to get the job done. So I'll add the link to the Esker store in the description section of the video. Thanks for watching.